potent advice, and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jamie Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. I am Jamie Masters, and today on the show we have David Schloss. Now, he runs a site called convertroi.com, and he's the master when it comes to Facebook, Instagram, all sorts of stuff, and his agency runs, I think it's a $2.5 million a month in advertising for your clients?
Yep, actually a little more than that now.
Really? That's a lot. So we're going to dive into both that and growing an agency. Thanks so much for coming on the show today.
No problem. Really appreciate you for bringing me on.
Oh, heck yeah. Okay, so tell me all the details. So first, let's go into the agency side. Did you always want to build a Facebook agency? Did you start out on your own? How have you grown this so far?
So when I first started out, I didn't have any sort of capability in the paid traffic side of things. I actually was doing SEO and video marketing. So I've done marketing online for a little over 12 years now. And I got into Facebook when they opened up the platform about 10 years ago. That's when I started to dabble with paid traffic because it was cheap, it was relatively easy to start out, and it was the wild, wild west. No one really knew how to use it 10 years ago, right? So you were able to throw $5 in, get a bunch of data, and then sort of learn and adapt from there. But I didn't start out doing Facebook at all because they didn't even have a platform when I first started out. And so I sort of had to just figure things out on my own, do some blogging, SEO, just learn how to do things manually on my own. And I didn't even try to do AdWords. It was just too expensive for me at the time. And then when Facebook opened up the platform to general advertisers, not just corporate big businesses, it was like the big opportunity just awaiting for someone to grab it. And I just went head in and did my best with it from the very beginning.
So everyone's like, oh, I hate these stories because it's like, oh, I got in on the ground floor. Ta-da, yay, right? Can't do that now. So what made you actually switch over from doing the SEO side of things all the way to Facebook? And I want to talk about new stuff too in just a second.
Sure. Yeah. So I didn't really enjoy doing SEO and building websites and the hosting packages you had to create for people. I didn't enjoy all that stuff. As much as I understood about it and was able to get results for people and myself, I just didn't enjoy doing it every single day. And I started out back when I was in college. I was like 18 years old when I first got into this stuff. And because of that, I didn't want to be doing SEO and building out websites and things of that nature for 10 hours of my day when I only had a very limited time to both go to school and do that sort of work. Whereas with SEO, I was able to do it, a couple hours a day. So I at least kept on doing that until something like Facebook and Twitter opened up their platform and a variety of other ones in the social network realm about 10 years ago. When they opened up their platform and they said it was cheap for the average person to join and advertise their business, that was a big wake-up call for me. I'm like, I just have a business. It's only been around for 2 years. I don't have a lot of money. I'm going to give this a shot and see what happens. And then I just became obsessed with it after that.
So you did it for clients even way back then. So now it's not nearly as cheap. Everybody's always upset about how it's so expensive now. Of course, depending on where you're at. So Tell me what you think of the marketing space now. Are we trying to look for that next ground floor opportunity like YouTube or Instagram or something else?
Yeah, so the funny thing is that YouTube ads have been around for years. I remember them being out even as far as 7-8 years ago, possibly even further back. And the only reason why people are finding out about it now is because their desperation for looking for that next platform that they can advertise their product, right? So because Facebook is going through all their, massive publicity right now around spying on different users and the data that's being gathered and how quote unquote expensive it is, people are moving over to YouTube when that platform's been around for years. And so people are looking at it as this, new breakthrough ground floor opportunity when it's been around forever. But like anything else, if your ads are not getting the attention of the people you're advertising, it's not going to work anyway. So even though it's cheap, it's not going to mean anything to you. And so I think right now people are looking for that, ground floor opportunity, like the first in, and they really just make a bunch of money off of it because they are one of the first advertisers on the platform. But quite honestly, there's nothing out there right now that's just making a big splash in the marketplace and people are like, oh, you need to get in on this right now. I think it's just because more people have to focus on their actual creative and their actual ads versus before. You can have a very, bland, minimalistic ad 7-8 years ago, white background, red border, buy my stuff, and people would actually click it. Can't do that anymore. And because
Which
of
is a
that,
good
ads are
thing, I
becoming more
think.
and more
Yeah.
expensive.
Well, and that's the thing that I think is really important. It actually, we switch from being a tactic everyone's like, I just need the best new whiz bang tactic thing. And I'm not a huge fan of that. It's like, okay, let's work on the offer. Make sure everybody wants that first, right? And then we'll put it on a
Exactly.
platform. And yeah, if it actually creates profit on the back end, that's what we're looking for instead of throwing out stuff because they don't actually have a strategy behind it. So for the people that know this already, because they've listened to me, they know this. What is the I don't want to say first steps because I have a feeling a lot of the people, especially doing 6 and 7 figures, have tested this before and either they got a little burned or they didn't figure it out right. So what do someone like that do that's tried it a little bit or tested a little and then gone, yeah, I have no idea, especially with all the Facebook stuff going on and they're backing away from some of that stuff.
Right. So most people these days have already dabbled with Facebook, like you said. I think it's more along the lines of, are you giving it another shot, but doing your ads in a different way? Meaning, in the past, most people start out using imagery. That's all they use is just images, stock photos. Maybe they get some created by a designer. Most people these days, surprisingly, still haven't used video ads. Video is where it's at. People are live streaming. People are creating video content to promote their webinar, their product, download my ebook, download my software, whatever it may be. And I think about 95% of my clients only use video ads. They don't use anything else other than video,
Ooh,
just
give me
simply
tips
because it
on that.
converts.
Because that's the other thing. I have clients and I'm like, do some video ads. And they're like, I don't want to be in front of camera or whatever the reason is, right?
Right.
So give me tips that I can directly tell clients on how to do better video ads for their Facebook person.
Sure. So it's actually not that difficult. So let's just do something where let's say it's a digital vendor, right? Someone's selling a online education course around a subject that they love, right? In my case, let's say I'm promoting something around Facebook advertising and Instagram. I would personally just take out my phone, point it at me, and start talking about why I created this course, why I put the course together in the first place, what really pushed me to create this for the marketplace, and why I believe it's something for them. That's it. 60 seconds. Just talk about your beliefs and why people need to jump on, in my case, why you need to be on Facebook, why you need to be on Instagram, and how it's the gold rush or the revolutionized version of social advertising to this day, and it's the opportunity you have to jump on. I don't have to say anything else. The reason why I'm saying it in that simplistic way is because once you begin doing this process of recording something, you're going to adapt and change the message over time to find what works. But most people just need to start, and they just need to start getting on camera. I know there's all this fear and all this, I don't know if I'm great on camera. I don't know if people want to listen to me. You don't know until you do it. And like a typical advertiser, I'm going to tell you, you got to test it first, right? So I would just get on camera, point it at yourself. If you want to get a selfie stick, that's fine. But just start recording the reasons why you put this together, how you put it together, and what you're going to be delivering, especially if it's a webinar. Those are the 3 key things you got to be talking about in your video. And just tell them where to go. What you're doing is creating a step-by-step process for them to know exactly what it is you're doing, how you're doing it, why you're doing it, and what they need to do next. And then they'll just follow that same pattern. Step 1, step 2, step 3. And they'll do everything you're saying. The people who want what you have to offer more than anything will follow every single step. They'll even buy when you tell them to buy.
So what is that? Yeah, I want to know what those steps are because that's the thing. So they do the video ad and it's like, what's the best call to action on that? And how do we know if they're working versus not working and all that fun stuff?
Right. Yeah, so most people will start out with something like, oh, go click the button or go click the link below and sign up for my webinar. For example, with webinars these days, people don't actually like to know it's a webinar, especially if it's live. They like to call it a masterclass, a workshop, even a training is okay. It's just the verbiage, right? Because webinar has been abused and used for.
I know nobody wants to show up. I don't show up live for webinars. I'm doing a webinar this week and I'm like, I'm doing it, but I want people to actually watch the replay because who the heck actually shows up live for anything anymore? Show up rates are like 10, 20% nowadays.
Exactly. Okay. So we tell our clients to reframe how they're presenting that training to people. So it's not a webinar because webinar it insists that people are live or that it's a recording. Now, if it's a recording, be honest. It's a recorded masterclass. This is a training we did several weeks ago. Just be honest with people, because most webinars these days are automated. Just be honest because that's what you want to portray to an audience these days is that you're a legitimate business person who is honest with that audience. You're going to deliver the goods, but in a transparent and honest fashion.
Yeah,
So if
people
it's
are a
something that's
little skeezed out nowadays, being like, "Oh, another webinar, really?" I mean, and it's in very different niches, right? Like I've got people in random stuff where nobody ever does webinars and it's not a thing, but in so many where anybody that's listening right now that's going, I tried Facebook ads, it didn't work. Okay, so we call it masterclass. Do we say sign up below for like what have you found that's actually working and converting best for calls to action on that?
We've told people to RSVP their seat, and we're looking forward to seeing you on the training. That's it. Nothing else. RSVP sort of gives away that, it's an order of importance, like you're grabbing your seat, right? You're going to grab your spot in this, online world of watching this webinar. And there's no significant amount of like seats, like, we only have 1,000 spots. That's not the case. We have unlimited amount of spots.
Yes.
But it's just the verbiage we're using to get people to want to grab that seat or grab that spot to go view the training. And we use Masterclass mainly because Masterclass right now has this high value added to it, especially considering there's a company called Masterclass that delivers high-end courses too. So it seems to be helping out quite a bit when we're promoting a webinar. And another thing is that we keep our webinars short. The average webinar in the past was 90 minutes to 120 minutes, so an hour and a half to 2 hours. And it would have everything from like an hour-long training to the pitch to an FAQ and a close down, right? It would be like basically an hour of content, half an hour, half an hour. It'd be in chunks. What we find now is most webinars are only an hour long, right? So they're half as long, maybe even 50% less as long. And then we're also finding that it's less about you and more about the content, and the pitch is very quick, right? So instead of a 15, 20-minute intro about you, people don't want to know too much about you. Just give them a 5-minute idea of what it is that you do, why you do it, and where you came from. And then the rest is just content, right? So you might talk for 40 minutes on content, something that's actionable that they can use right now. Because even if they don't buy from you, there's no better testimonial than knowing someone watched something from you for free and got a result.
Yes.
It's going to help you drive more traffic to your webinar because it's also shown that people have gotten results just from your free stuff.
See, I've been having so many, sorry to interrupt, because I'm obsessed with this right now. I'm asking so many people about webinar stuff because I feel like there is something else coming down the pipeline, right? Because webinars are so played out. So I was asking people with how short can we make them and how can we, right? Because conversions definitely matter. I understand that completely. And you're like, but I also want to not waste people's time. Because especially for me, I work with 6-figure business owners. Who shows up for a webinar anymore? I was like, can I get it down to 20 minutes? Can we just wham, bam? Thank you, ma'am. So when you're trying to figure out how to structure that webinar, and I know I interrupted, so I want to make sure I hear the rest. What is the best practices of someone going, I'm starting from a blank page. How long should that intro be? How long should that content be? How long should the pitch be? Because it's changed over the years.
Yeah, I mean, most of my webinars in the past were an hour and a half, no matter what. Right, I would just create the slides, I would do a practice run, and all of a sudden it would be an hour and a half on automatic. Like it wouldn't require any effort on my part. It would just be an hour and a half every single time. Now, trying to reduce what I talk about into an hour and still be able to give enough time for a pitch is actually quite difficult. And it's the same thing that I'm seeing with people in like real estate, for example. Try to explain real estate investing on a webinar in 30 minutes and then getting someone to invest in a $2,000 course. It's difficult. And so what we're finding is it's reducing those elements that we had before, like I mentioned with hour and a half or 2 hour long webinars. You're having to reduce it to just get straight to the point, right? Before you would lead up to something to make a point in, here's tactic number 1, tactic number 2, and you would sort of tell a story into each tactic, or you might talk about how each of these tactics impacted your business before you reveal what it is. That's not going to be allowed anymore because it's making your webinar way too long. And so you can have a webinar that's 45 minutes to an hour long. You're just having to condense everything down. So my story now in a webinar, 3 minutes long. I just tell people who I am, what I do, what I've done in the last couple of years, and what I'm going to be doing in the future. And that's it. It's one slide, and I blast right through it. And then we just get right into the content. The content has no story around it, no teaser or leading up to it. It's here's tactic number 1. I break down the tactic. maybe a story around, someone that had used it. James from Oregon used this from my last training, and he's actually added an extra, X amount of dollars to his advertising and to his bottom line, right? So I might incorporate a testimonial or some form of a short story along with each tactic, but I go right through it. There's no teaser. There's no, buttering up the audience. None of that stuff that's worked in the past is just gone. So you're removing fluff. That's really what you're doing now.
Good.
And if you
People
remove
don't
all
have
that
time
fluff,
for fluff. My gosh. Sorry.
yeah,
I
no
get
one
on
has
a
time for
tangent.
that.
Yes. Okay.
Exactly.
So how do you do the
take
pitch
out
then?
fluff, you got
Yeah.
45 minutes. And I'm
Yeah.
sure the next time you do one, you might even get it down to 30 minutes.
I got one
right? And
tomorrow,
that
so
is
I'm really
enough.
glad that we're going over this. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
so rework it. No, that's exactly what we're doing too. So we're trying to we did a checklist audit. So that way we're just going through the audit. At the end, they have the results of the systems audit that we're doing. So I'll let you guys know later if it works or not. But that's the thing. We found a whole bunch of people going, I just sit there and it's random stuff that I could read on an article that sucks. Why would I waste my time? So how do you get them to stay? Let's say the content's amazing and short. How do you get them to actually stay on the pitch, and how long is the pitch?
So that's the thing. I find that when you make the pitch within an hour, people are going to stay, because typically when you are jumping onto a webinar, because of how it's been framed for years, where they're assuming the webinar is going to be an hour to 2 hours long, as long as you make your pitch at, let's say, the 40 to 45-minute mark, if your webinar is going to be an hour, you're fine, because typically the majority of that audience is still going to be there. They've allocated an hour of their time to learning from you. So if you put on your phone, right, you just set up a shot clock, as I like to call it, a countdown, and you got an hour to say everything you're going to say, and you get to that pitch at the 40 to 45-minute mark, you have plenty of time to convince people why they need to buy your program. All right. So I find that if I make my pitch at that mark, instead of it being, 30 or 40% of the total viewers stay on and view that pitch or listen to your pitch, it's anywhere from 60 to 80%. Because they've already allocated that time. So it goes up dramatically in the amount of people listening to what it is you're going to offer.
So you don't have to do some crazy, like, stay on to the very, very end, I'll give you the thing, or bonus, or whatever. Do you do any of that stuff?
Yeah, in the beginning, you'll say something like, I've actually done this, and it's surprisingly worked. I said, look, I'm going to make an offer to you at the end. If you don't want to hear the offer, that's fine. I understand. But I want you to also understand this. Everything I talk about today is going to work in tandem or with what I'm going to be showing you at the very end. And trust me, you're going to want what I'm going to show you at the very end. So I suggest you stay on.
Ooh, okay.
That's it.
Yeah, so you're not like
once again,
skeezing about. I shouldn't say ski. Like, we are a society of people that have very short attention span. So sometimes we need a carrot in order to make sure we stick on the end. I totally understand that. But it's really cool to see that you don't have to do that to get people to stick on.
No. And the thing is we're being honest. Like, we want them to stay to the end. We want to show them what we're going to reveal. But it's not lying to them. It's not being, we're not trying to push them into doing anything. It's like, look, we are going to make an offer. We only want people to stay that want that next thing. We're going to give you some tactics that you're going to be able to use today. But I also want to show you the other 9 tactics that I'm going to reveal that can help you take your business from 6 to 7 or 7 to 8 figures. But hey, if you just want 6-figure tactics, stay on the webinar. You know what I mean? So we try to give them as much honesty up front with, yes, we're going to make an offer. That's why we're doing a webinar. If this was a free training, we'd make it 10 minutes long. So I think now with webinars and the amount of transparency that people are looking for, if you're just upfront with people and they know that A, this is not live, or B, that you're going to make an offer, the ones who truly want to learn and listen to you are going to stay. And those are the ones that you want to be talking to in the first place.
I love it. Okay. So when we're sending, just to go back to the ad thing for a minute, what are you looking at cold traffic wise? Because I get people come to me all the time going, well, how much budget how do I know it's a good test? How much should my leads actually be? What if they don't convert on the webinar? Is that right? So can you talk about that? Because I know if somebody's tried it, especially if they've tried it with a Facebook agency that's not necessarily up to speed on or on the cutting edge of stuff, it's lacking, let's say that.
Yeah.
And so if they're going to jump in again, I want them to sort of know baseline metrics of what they should be either hoping for or expecting or what. Can you lay down that?
Sure. So just a little disclaimer, every number I share is primarily a benchmark. It's not going to work for every single industry. It's just what I see for majority of the industries that I run ads in, right? So when it comes to things like a cost per lead, we find that the $4 to $6 range and we're talking per registrant, not attendee, per registrant,
Okay.
is between $4 and
And that's
$6.
cold.
In some spaces, we can get it for far less. We're talking very broad, audiences that can range all across the U.S. Maybe it's not something that only a specific group of people would know about. If it's very generalized, you can get it for much cheaper than that. I mean, we've seen webinar registrants for $1 to $2 in spaces like fitness, for example, right, where lots of people want to get in shape. But if it's something like real estate investing or how to run Facebook ads or, how to build a wealth generating business, things of that nature, they could be much more than that. They could be in the 5 to 7 range. Typically, I see between like 6 and 7 is the case. Now, with that being said, the core thing you have to understand is this. You're probably going to need at least $1,500 to $2,000 for a webinar to promote. You may not spend it all, but that's what I suggest to people. So the reason for that is because you might find a pocket of an audience that starts to connect with what you're saying on the second or third day of your promotion. And when you're doing that, you want to start scaling and ramping up. If you don't have the budget to do that, let's say you've already spent $600. If your budget's only $1,000, you're not going to get that many additional registrants from that point forward. So if you give yourself a 5 to 7 day window to promote your webinar, if it's live or if you're just doing a test run, 5 to 7 days is an adequate amount of time. And so if it takes you 3 days to figure out the audience that's finally connecting with what you're saying, you're going to need that extra $500,000, $1,500 to promote to that one audience because it may have only led to 20 or 30 registrants in the beginning and you want to get to 100 or 200. So you need that additional budget once you find that core audience. If you're doing an automated webinar, it's a completely different process because it's ongoing. It's the whole month or the next 2-3 weeks that you can do some testing. And so instead of just spending $1,500 to $2,000 immediately, you could spend $1,500 to $2,000 over the course of a month. But I'm in a different way of doing advertising. I tell people you want to get all the data that you want in as quickly as you can and as efficiently as you can. Get the testing done in a week or 2 weeks if you need to. If we're 6-7 figure businesses, I'm sure we could spend $2,000 a week to figure out what's working so that by the next month we could spend $2,000 every 3 days to be making $5,000 a day.
So
right?
I guess that's the question too then. If you have a launch model, do you do a bunch of the same webinars to a bunch of cold traffic as much as you possibly can so that way you can figure out what audience works?
That's exactly it. So if you're doing a launch, let's say it's a month-long launch. I've done launches that are 2 weeks long and we've done 5 webinars in 2 weeks, right? But let's just say it's a 3 or 4 week launch. You got a pre-launch, you got the actual launch itself, then you got post-launch, meaning like the closing down, and then it's last chance sort of thing. And that can go as long as 3 to 4 weeks. During that launch process, in the first week, you're typically promoting to the people who know you the most, your warm traffic, your endorsed traffic. That at least lets you know whether or not people want what it is you're going to offer, right? You're going to see whether or not your own audience actually thinks what you're delivering is interesting. If that endorsed or warm traffic does not buy from you, you're not even going to promote to cold traffic at all because your own people didn't buy your course or buy your software or whatever it is. Now, let's say it passes that test and 20% of the people who know who you are already bought from you. That's typically high in cold traffic numbers, but for warm traffic, 15-20% buy rate of the amount of people who are on the webinar is actually considered normal, right? So 100 people come on, 20 people buy. That's pretty normal for a warm traffic webinar.
Does that matter on what the price point of the piece is? Like, is it a $300 thing or a $2,000 thing? Doesn't really matter? 15-20%?
No, I've seen it.
Okay.
I mean, even if it's a $2,000 product, I've seen 20% of the people buy, right? It's all because they know who you are. They're familiar. They're your biggest fangirls and fanboys, right? They just want whatever it is you're going to talk about.
Yeah.
And typically, the higher cost it becomes, the less percentage of a purchase you're going to get. But I've seen people promote $2,000 courses, $3,000 courses, and they still get 15 to 20% of the people to buy.
Okay, because I was chatting with someone before, and they're like, "Well, 1,500 seems like the sweet spot right now, over across a bunch of industries." And so I'm like, "Ooh, is the price point also going down on what you're willing?" But of course, it could be the trust factor, right? Of I'm willing to spend maybe 1,500 on someone I've never met before versus 3,000 when I've known you and I know you're good for it, right? I'm not going to get screwed over.
Just a quick little example. I don't promote anything less than $1,000, and that's from a course or consulting standpoint. All of my services are $2,000, sometimes $2,500 or above. So when I've done a training webinar and I've told people, if you want to work with me, it's $2,500. There is no hesitation. And that's from a warm or endorsed being like a JV situation. I say $2,500, no pay plan, all up front. People don't hesitate because I've already created that know, like, and trust factor with a large portion of the audience that I typically advertise
So
to,
you
or that
sell
I'm
your
usually doing training.
consultancy, so the agency side through a webinar also, because I want to get into how you grew your agency also. There's a lot of people that are solopreneur Facebook guys
Yep.
going, I want to make a lot more money and get a lot more clients, but how do we do this in this day and age now?
Yeah, so when I've done webinars on my own and I've promoted my agency, I've done an agency and consulting hybrid, right? You can either have the work done for you or I could do the work with you as a consultant. But none of that is less than $1,000, right? You can't even talk to me and get consulting from me unless you're paying at least $1,000, right? So, and I've established that for years. Every training webinar that I do for free for my friends and family and whoever wants to promote to their audience, I always tell them, this is the free content, but if you want to work with me, or even if you just want to have a conversation with me, you need $1,000. That's it. Case in point. And I don't make exceptions. I don't give, friends and family discounts or bro deals or whatever you want to call them. This is what it is. And because of that, every webinar I do, and I say the same exact pitch, it's this or this, people just accept it and go for it. They don't question it. They don't try to get something for cheaper. They just pay.
Okay, so I have a question. So you do a dual pitch. So you're like, you can either go this way or this way. So you're actually asking them to choose.
Yep. And here's the fun fact for all you agency people. If you do a consulting call with people and you just break down the process and you give them just pure gold for an hour, typically what ends up happening is they want to upgrade to a done for you.
Yeah, they're like, I don't want to do all this. This is a lot.
Exactly.
Okay, go.
Yeah. So having that hybrid or that dual pitch ends up becoming almost like your lead gen or your own sales funnel. It's like you're getting the leads that want to work with you, right? They're getting on a consult or they just straight up want to work with you immediately. Of course, you have to onboard and really just listen to their problems and what solutions they want to create and see whether or not they're ideal for you. But let's say someone jumps on a consulting call with you. All I need is an hour. I'll blow them away with amazing stuff for an hour. And I would say about 9 out of 10 end up saying, can I just have you do it for me? So automatically, we go from a $1,000 consulting call to a $2,500, sometimes even $5,000 a month package, all because I just solved all their problems in 1 hour. And they don't want to do it. They don't want to build it.
Yeah, if they have the money, here, take that. You've proven your value enough. So therefore, you're the sales guy then too. How big is your team, and what pieces are you playing in that? Because you're the talent and the sales guy, and you seem like you're doing a lot of it too.
Yeah. So I have a team of 7.
Okay.
All ad managers. I don't really include like my virtual assistants and things like that because they only work for me here and there. The 7 core people on my team work for me every single day, and they're ad managers. They understand data. They've learned my entire process. They basically had to learn my process before I called them an ad manager, right? So we have this 3-month process of you have to learn everything that I know. I have it all in course format. You have to run some campaigns for me that I assign to you and show me that you're going through my process. But basically these 7 people, all domestic, all in the US, have run ads for me at least either in the last 6 months or to as long as the last 2 years. I only started hiring people about 2.5 to 3 years ago.
What made you
And so I
decide
ran
to
a
hire
lot of
people?
my agency.
Because that's the other thing too, is like when you're the solo guy and you're deciding to add to your team, it's sometimes a little like cash flow, yay, supporting other humans, awesome, right?
Yep.
And people get scared at that piece. So and now you have 7, right? So you've grown a lot in 2 years, which is awesome. But how did you make that first hire step, and what advice do you have, I should say, for people that are getting there that want 7 long term?
Yeah, so for a large portion of my agency career, so to speak, I was just doing everything solo because, like you said, the cash flow, maybe it's because you've only gotten to as high as 7 or 10 clients and you're like, this is it, I'm good, I could just coast, right? For a time during that transition of going from solo to hiring a team or building a team, I was very complacent and stagnant with my client generation. Like I was hovering between 10 and 15 clients, which is still a lot to handle by yourself. And in managing those people, I was just scared to hire 2, 3, or 4 people because I thought to myself, man, I can't really generate another 10 or 15 clients to not only support them, but to continue to grow my own cash flow and do other things in the business. So I was having to go through a lot of personal and emotional hurdles before I started to hire people. Once I made that decision and I said, you know what, my cash flow is going to go down, but it's okay because I'm already taken care of. As long as my personal expenses are taken care of, everything's fine because I'm going to eventually grow. And I started hiring just one person at a time. My first hire, it was about 3 years ago. It took me another 6 months before I added a second person. Only because I had to make sure that this person was willing to train the next person that comes in, and I wouldn't have to do everything myself. Right? So every time I made a new hire, it wasn't me training that person. It was someone on the team training the next person.
So was it
Like a
easy to find the extra 10 or 15 clients? So that's the other piece. It's like, oh, 6 months I hired another one. Well, then that's another 10 or 15. That's another 10 or 15. But you still had to train them. So this is the thing that I see with people in general. They're like, oh, finally make my first hire. Yay. Go do your thing. And you're like, yeah, there's training. There's a lot. There's actually less time at the beginning that you have. And that sucks for people. So tell me about that transition to actually getting those extra 10 or 15 clients within that first 6 months with your person.
So during that time, I would say it's more like, 3 years ago is when we had this massive breakthrough year. It was when we went from having, at the time, 20 clients was our benchmark. It was like, we just want to get to 20 and we want to stay there for a while. Lo and behold, we blew through that. We got to about 35 clients that year. But what I was looking to do was bring on at least 3 to 4 people on my team. When we got to 20, we only had 2. What I found out in going through this hiring process was that every person I bring onto my team, depending on the size of the account, can at least manage anywhere from 7 to 10 accounts on their own, unless the account is spending $100,000 a month or more. If that's the case, they could probably only manage between 3 to 5 accounts. Okay. And this is just from my own experience. I was looking at my whole career running ads on Facebook and Instagram and saying, when did I find myself most stressful? Oh, it was when the accounts were spending 6 figures a month. Those are the accounts that you can't manage 7 to 10 because you're making changes all day long. It's all day. And so because of that, 3 to 5 accounts is max. And even if you build rules and different types of systems, you're still in there all day long. So 3 to 5 accounts max, which if that's the case, let's just say 5 accounts per person. At the current capacity we're at now, that would be 35 accounts total. Plus me, let's just say 40, which we have far more than that because our accounts vary all over the place. And so during that breakthrough, what I did was I assigned my hires to 7 to 10 accounts apiece. We were at 20, so I assigned 7 and 7, and then I kept 6 myself when in the beginning. And I would just go personally to events, as many events as I could. 3 years ago, I went to 2 events per month every single month, the whole year.
That's awesome.
I made that decision. My girlfriend at the time, she was like, nah, I don't know if it's a good idea. I'm like, trust me, this is going to be worth it.
Did you have data knowing that where you got most of your clients was from events and that's why leveling up that was the best? Okay.
Yep. So I realized that every mastermind I went to, every local event I went to, every conversation I had over the phone led to something. Whether it was them working with me or it was them making an intro to someone else that they knew that needed something that I have to offer. And so I'm a very good people person. I love being on the phone and talking and being in person and having fun with others. Communication is key for me. And so I really like to learn about people first before I start to talk about anything business related. But I realized that every time I went to a mastermind or I went to an event like Traffic and Conversion Summit or the ClickFunnels Funnel Hacking event or anything like that, every event I went to, I came home with 2 or 3 clients on autopilot. It was as if like just me being me led to 2 or 3 clients every time. Okay, so if I go to 2 events a month, I'm adding 4 to 6 clients every month. Sounds like a good idea. So I started going to a bunch of events. And some were local, some were, I had to fly across the country or I had to maybe drive 5 hours to get to it. It didn't matter to me, right? It's all business expense anyway. Might as well make it happen. So every time I went to an event, I would grow my network, 50 to 100 people at a time, and I would sign 2 to 3 clients like clockwork. It was on automatic, and I still do this to this day. And just like that, within about 6 months, we grew, I think it was something like 15 or 20 clients within a short time span. I had to add 3 more people to my team, and then that's when I started to develop systems for hiring. I started to develop like a library of content that everyone had to go through before they can even manage accounts on their own. I had to develop a CRM. I had to get a CRM in place to manage all of our people and manage the people that I'm meeting at events.
Give me all the tech because I'm a systems. I love this stuff, and nobody really talks about what's the best working. So for agency wise, what tech are you using, and what systems were really all the difference for you?
Right. So these are the tech that I'm using just to manage people. Right. So we use Asana to manage all of our projects. right? It manages everything from our prospects to our existing clients and everything that we're doing for them, right? With the prospect side of things in Asana, what we're really just putting in there is that we've had a conversation with somebody and what they want to do in terms of a project. Now, the CRM itself that we're using right now, we're using Insightly. Insightly integrates with Gmail, right? It integrates through Gmail for Business, so we can keep track of every conversation we've had with someone, and we can tag it to where we could say, this is an important lead, this is someone who's closing, this is someone in like phase one of prospecting, basically, like we just had a conversation with them, hasn't really led to anything yet, right? So we could tag every conversation with like what part of the phases of sales are we in right now? Are we closing them? Are we just having conversations? So on and so forth. Also within Insightly, you have, like I said, sales pipeline management, you got the CRM side with the contacts, and you can also create flows. Like if you wanted to create like a different sales flow for different services, you could. So you could showcase like mind maps of different flows for different things and assign people to it, which is incredibly important for me. So it's like everyone who's closing Facebook related services, this is your flow. You should be able to close them within 3 calls. If you're talking about a hybrid package of Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, you have this flow. It's going to take you about 5 calls before you can really close them because you have to explain each different platform. Right? So we're able to create that and assign people to it.
Ooh, I like it.
And then we also use Boomerang for Gmail.
Yes, my favorite. Okay. Everybody go get Boomerang right now. Go ahead.
We set up everything in advance. Even for, I'm starting a podcast as well. So we actually templated out all of our different podcast introductions and things of that nature, and we just set it up in Boomerang so we can like schedule out everything for that individual guest or whatever it may be, right? If we're making a prospecting introduction, or maybe we're just referring someone out to a buddy of ours that does great work, we actually just schedule it out in Boomerang and it goes out a couple hours later. We typically send out most of our emails either really early in the morning or midday in the afternoon, because we see that that's when a lot of our colleagues tend to answer. We send something late morning, early afternoon, it goes unnoticed until the next day. So we've just started to schedule things out at certain times of the day to send out emails. And then lastly, one of the interesting softwares that I've been using is I think it's called like Yesware.
Oh yeah.
Yesware. I use Yesware because I want to make sure people are actually opening my emails, and it's really interesting to send it to someone that you meet at an event, because everything's attached with Yesware, and if they don't answer or open any of the emails, we'll send out an email that we scheduled out through Boomerang that says, "Hey, we noticed you didn't open the email, and yes, I know whether or not you opened the email." Like, we put that in the subject.
Yes, I know, creepy. You're like,
and people
man.
They're like, what? Like they get really confused, but at the same time they think it's hilarious because we just tell them straight up, we know you opened the email or not. And so we just use that for tracking. We want to make sure that people are actually opening the emails. Insightly is actually coming out with their own feature for that, so I might not even need Yesware anymore.
Well, I was going to say, do you integrate them? Because that's the other piece. Then you have separate software that's a pain in the butt, and either you have to use Zapier or you have to figure out ways so that way you have all your data, because otherwise you're pulling it from everywhere for different prospects, which is a pain. So do you integrate right now, or?
Yeah, right now, I mean, they all integrate. That's the reason why I love them all. At one point I was testing out different CRMs other than Insightly, and they didn't quite integrate well with Gmail for Business. So I just decided to abandon those platforms and find something that works with Boomerang, with Insightly, with Yesware. And funny thing is that Boomerang actually says we integrate with Insightly. It's in their features page. So I was like, oh, perfect. Let's just integrate. Done. And
that's
then
the thing,
because
that's a pain
everything
in the
goes with
butt for
Gmail.
an owner to do, because like I know for HelloSign, we use HelloSign because it integrates with absolutely everything way better.
Yep.
But people that aren't super geeky are like, or never built websites, right? Are not like, oh, I'm looking for integrations. They're like, I want something that's good enough that I will use, please, right? And so having somebody that actually has made sure that this works together is extremely important. Okay.
It is. It is, because one of the things that I do, I mean, every morning when I open up Chrome or Firefox, we use 2 browsers for Facebook. We have to always check things to make sure it works in the browsers. Is that when we open our last session, when we're on Chrome, we have the same tabs open every day, right? We got the Facebook ad manager that's open. We have Yesware. We have Insightly. We have Gmail. Like, it's the same stuff every day. And if we want to go and browse other things, we open up a completely different browser to go view. Right? But we open the same tabs all the time. So I want to make sure that those tabs that are open are all integrated. I want to make sure that Asana is open, because anytime I put a task in there, I want to make sure that someone is moving that specific information from Asana also in Insightly to make sure that it's all relevant and that we know information around the sale versus what project they want to get done, right? So there's all sorts of different things that we make sure they integrate across the board. Asana doesn't integrate with the platform. It's just a project management system. We like to keep it separate anyway because it's made specifically for to-do list type features, not to be managing your contacts at all. But of course, me being me, I figured out a way to make it to where a project is all client related. A project is like, oh, I'm building out a course, so you could build a to-do list based on your course. So I figured out ways to turn it almost into like a standard to-do list or like Trello. A lot of people use Trello.
Yep.
I've created a way to use Asana in a similar fashion to Trello if you're more of like a card person.
Yeah, I'm such a card person, but I don't like Trello because it's not as robust, and Asana was annoying to me. We use Asana also, but it integrates so much better with everything else. So what's great is that you could even run it as a CRM, but I don't recommend it. That's why I liked your CRM reference. But you can port everything. But a lot of the people I work with and a lot of people I chat with about this don't even know that stuff exists yet, let alone do it themselves. And you'll save so much time, people.
Oh yeah.
The fact that you don't have an admin, like you only have VAs that they don't even work every day is pretty impressive to have 7 ad managers on your team. So you must be pretty well systemized, I'm assuming.
Yeah. We're obviously there's always room for improvement. Like, so now we started to create documents for every little thing. Like we're reframing a lot of what we do to be more of like a traditional agency, because we find that if, let's say, Facebook disappeared tomorrow, we would have at least 95% of the framework we need to move to the next platform. Because we're using the exact same methodologies, we're using the same processes to follow along with a project. Like all that stuff is still the same, except now the platform is different.
Smart man, though. A lot of people don't. They're like, "Oh, what happens when Facebook goes away?" You're like, "I'm screwed now." But it's just a platform. There's lots of platforms. There's going to be somebody making money on some form of platform many years to come. So we just have to make sure that we're keeping everything, like you said, in a specific method so you can actually do it. Because I think that's going to be the biggest issue for people is if something happens to Facebook or whatever it is, that's the main thing. If you can't port extremely quickly and be like, oh, all that money you were giving me for Facebook, we're just going to move it over here. Then otherwise you have no business. Right?
And not to mention, like my ad managers, I've taught them to be self-sufficient. Right. So if they need to create something that's not already been created, like we've had in the last couple of weeks, we've had one ad manager realize there were certain holes in our documentation for creating an ad campaign. She just filled them all in. She just did it on her own. She just filled it in, put it in a different color text. She said, hey, this is what I added to the documentation to show you like why I feel it's worth adding to it and where we can improve things. She just did it and I approved it all. I'm like, this looks great. And it saved me a bunch of time. And so I allow my ad managers to take command or build their own leadership within the company. I don't have to just be over their shoulder all the time. And I did that on purpose because I realized that allowing them to be the leader or allowing them to be, the captain of their own ship has also allowed them to open up creatively when it comes to running the ad campaigns. And so because they don't assume I'm over their shoulder micromanaging, which I'm not, I'm letting them do their thing, they create some campaigns that I've never seen before. They create setups that I would have never thought of putting together. Like they're starting to just develop this own free thinking when it comes to building out campaigns, which is great. You follow my system to make sure we get a result. But if you do something that ends up getting a better result than what I've typically created, we're going to put a note in our system to do something like that every once in a while. And so I allow them to create things on their own and come up with the reason why we don't have VAs working all the time is because we're not having to prospect every day. We're not having to send out emails all the time. I've built a client base that only wants to communicate with me through 2 platforms, Slack and Skype. And those conversations every day, at the end of the day, one VA goes in there and takes notes of every conversation I've had and puts them in Asana and in Insightly. So that way I never have to reference them again. And that's all her job is to do. Is just go in there, copy paste. This was said on this day, and that's it. And so, for me, we've built out a way of communication to where we can remember everything that someone has talked about with us anywhere from 24 hours ago to, months ago, 6 months ago. And I don't have to, be scrolling through finding a reference point. I don't have to, be doing everything myself because someone has already made those footnotes for me.
Aren't you scared that people are going to, this is the question I also get all the time. Aren't you scared that if you empower your team, especially in the ad manager side, they know that they can make a lot more on their own?
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's already happened. It's already happened to me.
Seem pretty chill about it. See, people listen to him.
And
It's might
yeah,
happen. Just so you know, it's not the end of the world.
it's
All
already
right.
happened. Um, I'm really chill about it because I've gotten over the fact that it's the inevitable. It happens. Now, my experiences may be unique because the people who've left my company and started their own agency were all men.
Huh.
I'm just going to leave that fact
Yeah,
really quick.
interesting.
All men. And if you noticed, every person I've said, as part of my team, I've said it's a woman
Really?
every time. I haven't said, he. I haven't said he. I said she has done X
Do you only have
every time.
females working for you?
I have 7 women working for me.
Go you.
So, so
I'm allowed to
the
say that.
reason
No.
for that, it's not that I don't
Yeah.
trust guys.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to bring on another guy into my company because I need to change it up a bit so where we can, try out something different. I find that with ad management, women have a certain way of delivering a campaign and men just get very aggressive with campaigns. And some campaigns I need to get aggressive, right? So it's having to, just try out different ways of creating that masculine energy for certain things. Like for some campaigns, we want ads now, like let's move now. Sometimes my team doesn't tend to do that. But when I had guys on my team, if I said, hey, I need something done right now, they would just do it. It would be automatic. So I started figuring that out just on my own experiences. But my whole team right now is women. And what I had realized in working with these women that I brought onto my team over time is that they want loyalty, they want consistency, and they want to have freedom to do whatever it is that they want. That's just from my own team. And a lot of these women have families already. So they want to work a finite amount of time, and they're very efficient. Very efficient. I have 6 hours. I'm going to do this from, let's just say 10 to 4. And at 4 o'clock, I'm going to report to you with X, Y, and Z, and everything's going to be done for the day.
Where did you find
Sounds
them, by the way?
fantastic.
Like hiremymom.com or something like where did you end up hiring them? Because I know we have to start wrapping up, but everybody's going like, I want those people on my team.
Yeah. So forums. I would build up a profile on like a work from home forum. And I would say that I'm looking for anyone. But what I'd find is that with the certain verbiage I would use in my job post, it would attract mostly women. We're looking for people who who want to build consistency because they have a family life that they want to maintain, and they want to work maybe, 6 hours at most per day.
That makes sense.
That automatically is going to attract mostly work from home moms because they have to fill a certain schedule. Cool. Work from home moms are great because they have a specific amount of time. And because of that, they're going to understand things much quicker, right? And they'll take the extra time they need to, study, or let's say in the campaign side of things, they're going to just analyze things from a technical standpoint on their free time, right? It might be 11 o'clock at night for them. It could be 5 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't matter. The point is that they're going to always take that time to learn when they have that moment. And when they are working on the clock, they're super quick and very efficient. And so I found that hiring moms has actually worked really, really well for me.
If you
Whereas
want
with my
something done,
assistant,
right? You're like, if you want something done, ask someone that's busy, right?
exactly. And then when I hired my assistants, they have typically been not work from home moms. They're people who are, I've had digital nomads work for me. I've had from the assistant side of things, just people who are in need of like different chunks of time, right? So they might do things in like 2-hour blocks, but they'll do 3 different 2-hour blocks. So they'll do 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and 2 hours at night, which is great for me because then I could say in first 2 hours in the morning, send out those emails, 2 hours in the afternoon, make sure all the projects in the project management system are getting checked off after all the remarks are added. And in the evening, make sure you copy paste some messages from Skype and Slack into Asana. So I like having that different chunk system because it's throughout the day. It's like having someone full time, except it's only during morning, afternoon, and evening, right? So I have found that with assistants, I don't care what time zone you're in. I don't care what you do. I just need you for a couple hours a day. And as long as you could fulfill these things, we're all good. And so once again, women seem to fulfill that job really quickly because they're like, I have this time period. I want to knock this out right now. And they do it. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll just keep hiring women then. And so, when it comes to hiring in general, people are going to steal. It's going to happen. So what you do, you put NDAs and you put non-competes in place in your business. I had to learn this the hard way. You put NDAs to where the people within your business cannot communicate with your clients for, let's just say 12 months, right? It's a 12-month, or even if you want to do 3 years, you could do something as long as you want. Make sure that there's clauses in your employee contract that state they cannot get in contact with any of your clients or, existing or past. And also make sure that they do not steal any of your information. If any of this information is found in your possession outside of this corporation, you will be fined for blah, 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 blah.
That makes sense.
Right? Whatever that legalese is. I had a lawyer draft this up for me.
Yep.
But here's the other fun thing. If you want to try this out, I actually just did this with someone who left recently. One of the women in my organization left to open her own agency. We worked out an agreement. If you leave my company within your first year of employment and you decide to open your own agency, you will give me 25% of your profits.
Or don't do it. So yeah, exactly. You're taking what we did. Yeah.
But she wanted to open her own thing because she built up this rapport as a great ad manager, not with my own clients, but just like she built up this rapport of being a really top-notch woman in the space. And she opened her own thing. And I said, how about this? If you decide to leave within that first year, we'll work out an agreement where I'm sort of like your JV, I'm your advocate, and you'll give me 25%. And so what I'm actually building is now a referral base, because what people are finding out is that they're actually coming to me first to make sure that she's a good advertiser. I have people ask me if it's okay to hire her. I'm like, of course it's okay. And now what they don't realize is that as soon as they say yes to her, she's sending over 25% every month.
Yeah.
For that deal.
Well, and it's different avatars potentially also, right? So we might have somebody who's just sort of getting started and that sort of thing on that side. And then you work with the bigger guys. So she might be able to pass bigger guys to you anyway, right? So
exactly. It can definitely she's actually been taking on most of the lower end clients that I usually would say no to.
Yeah.
She's been taking on those people, and it's been like an extra, it's like a little JV, a little affiliate promotion going on in the background. And that's fine. But like I said, I didn't get concerned about the whole stealing or taking my information and repurposing, because it will happen. It inevitably will happen. And as long as you don't fear it and just keep going and progressing, you just do your thing and don't worry about it. If someone wants to compete with me who is in my organization, good luck. Just good luck, because I have 10 years in this game and a great reputation.
Yeah.
So I don't worry about it.
I love that. Okay. So I know we have to start wrapping up. What is one action? Because we went over a lot, right? What is one action listeners can take this week to help move them forward towards their goal of 1 million?
This might seem like common sense, but get out the house or the office and go to events, period. They don't have to be industry events. They could be events that are outside of what you do. But if you're an agency like me, where I do advertising, or if you want to do marketing for people, go to events where your typical client or the person you want to be doing work for is at that event, and network with those people. It's that simple. And yet for some reason, people don't do it. And so take the time to go to events. I go to Traffic and Conversion every year because there's 2,000 people with all sorts of businesses. And all I have to do is meet one person who might introduce me to 50. Right. So I'm just making an effort to introduce myself to others and saying, what can I do to support you in your business? That's exactly the exact question I ask. What can I do to support you and your business? And they tell me, oh, well, I'm having problems with my ad campaigns, or I can't find the right hires, or whatever it may be. And I might have that one thing to say to them, that one golden nugget that, shoots them to the moon. They're, oh my God, you're amazing. And next thing you know, they're introducing people to me who could become clients. And so take the time to go to an event at least once a quarter, whether it's within the same state or somewhere throughout the country. And it doesn't have to be in your industry. It could be just something where, it might be advertising related. It could be real estate related. It doesn't matter. Just go to it and introduce yourself to people, because you never know who they know that might introduce you to your next big client.
Yes. I get asked all the time, who should I use for this? I'm always looking for really amazing people. And I test before I do a referral and all that fun stuff. But man, you're helping these people out, by the way. If you're good, you're helping the people out. So thank you so much for coming on the show today. Where can we find more about you, your business, where to hire you, to find you, all that fun stuff?
Sure. So you can just go to my website, convertroi.com. On that site, you'll see what it is that I do for clients and how you can contact me. If you want to have a direct line of communication with me, go to Facebook. Just go to facebook.com/SCHLOSSY. That is my direct profile. It goes straight to my inbox. I read everything. So if you want to message me there and you want to just communicate on possibly working together or anything else along those lines, just hit me up. I'll communicate with you and we'll make something happen.
Go you. You don't have 5,000. I've got 5,000 friends. I have to delete people in order to do it again. But anyway, yes, go you for telling your personal information. Everybody, if you loved this, he shared so much amazingness. Go connect with him either way. Seems like an amazing resource. Thanks so much for coming on the show today, David. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed that interview. And if you want to check out more amazing resources, I'm only curating the best of the best. Go check out eventualmillionaire.com. You can take the Eventual Millionaire quiz, figure out where you are in business and what you need right now. Plus, you can look at curated resources specifically for you on the new Start Here page. I'm so excited. Please join us. Please let me know if you need anything at all. I'm here for you. And have a fantastic day. Bye.